Okay, so let's take a look at the box office from this past weekend. This one's a little bit weird because it's like a double long weekend because a lot of films released last Wednesday on Valentine's Day, and today technically is a federal holiday. So this is really just for Friday to Sunday, but there is kind of a meta narrative around this. So for this past weekend, the American box office brought in about $76 million, which is actually a 105% jump from the previous weekend, which is great to see, but also not a huge, bar to overcome, since the past couple weeks have just been abysmal in terms of box office returns. We have four major things opening that made into the top 10. We got at number 1, Bob Marley One Love, the Bob Marley biopic, coming in at about $28 million for its domestic debut. Again, this technically premiered on Wednesday, but it was projected to make about 16 to 21 million in its opening week or weekend, so it actually overperformed here, which is interesting to see. And it was made for about a $70 million budget. It looks like it's made about 80 million worldwide so far. So if this can have legs and kind of keep going, this will probably end up being a decent return, and it'll just continue more biopics about musicians. I still have not yet seen it. I'm not sure if I'll get a chance to, since like I said, I'm not feeling well, but from what I heard, it's okay. So I'm curious to see what lessons Hollywood will take from this, in terms of, it being kind of a bland movie, but if it makes money, people will watch it. Another big release that also released on Valentine's Day on Wednesday last week, coming in at number 2, we have Madam Web, the next installment of the Sony Spider-Man universe of movies without Spider-Man, which is so stupid. The last one being, I believe, was Morbius, which infamously was critically panned and was a huge commercial flop. And it was really funny because people were memeing about how much they loved Morbius, being sarcastic. Sony was like, "You do? Well, we'll re-release it," after they had pulled it out of theaters, and it bombed a second time. Not sure if that will happen for this, but this came in at about 15 million. It was projected to make about 15 to 24 million. So it's kind of just barely within those projections. But it was made for about an $80 million budget, and has only grossed about 26 million domestic, 52 million worldwide. So it still has a little bit of a ways to go to recoup that budget, let alone the everything on top, like advertising and marketing and things like that. So this is not really a hot take. I foresee this movie having a huge drop next weekend. I don't see this having any kind of legs or word of mouth. If anything, the word of mouth has been abysmal, and so yeah, I am going to be very surprised if this has any kind of staying power in the next, even just into next week, let alone throughout the season. Again, another indictment of the American box office that coming in at number 5, we have The Chosen, the TV show with its season 4, episodes 4 and 6, being released in theaters, making about 3.4 million for the weekend, bringing its total to 4.2 million domestic. If you have been following, they actually released the first 3 episodes in theaters about a week or 2 ago, and that also made it into the top 10, which again I think just speaks to, again, it's not a to impugn The Chosen. I have not watched it, but I've heard really good things, and people who watch it seem to really like it. But what does it say that basically 3 episodes of a TV show just kind of lumped together are not only in the top 10 but the top 5, right? Again, it is that time of year. I'm being a little harsh on the box office the past couple of weeks, but January and February are typically kind of slower. It's really the second half of February into March that you really start to seeing things pick up. And then number 10, we have Land of Bad. This is like a military thriller. I'm planning on seeing it later this week, but I might, again, change. It brought in at about, it's just squeaked into the top 10, coming in at 1.8 million for the weekend. So total, that would bring it to 2 million domestic, 2.1 million worldwide. Again, interesting that made it in, but again, I'd be shocked if this remains in the top 10 moving into next week. In terms of continuing films, we have Lisa Frankenstein bringing in about $2 million, coming in at number 9. So this was actually in second place last week, and now in its only second weekend, its second frame, is dropped from second to ninth, which is not great to see. It had about 45% drop, which is not awful, but again, not, not great. Right, and so far it's made about 8 million domestic and worldwide. I've heard decent things though. Again, assuming that I end up feeling better this week because I'm a little sick. My plan is to see it tomorrow, but that might not happen. But I've heard like decent things. It was written by the same person who wrote Jennifer's Body, which was a cult classic. But the thing about cult classics is that by definition they were not super successful when they came out, right? So, I'm curious to see if this will kind of have legs, moving into the next couple of weeks, but especially, seeing as it wasn't really able to pull strong results despite the Valentine's kind of theming with it being kind of like a horror comedy or like romantic comedy. So I'm not sure how well it will do as we move into March with bigger players. Just a couple other of notable things here. We actually have two films that actually had box office grosses like a jump from their previous weekend. So you have Migration coming in at number 4, raking at about 3.8 million for the weekend. It actually jumped from 5th to 4th place in its 9th frame. So this thing has been out, I think it came out like in November or December. It has a 28% jump, bringing its total 116 million domestic, 256 million worldwide. Again, was not expecting this to be, to say super successful would be, I think, be an overstatement. It's not, it's a pale comparison to, I think, what children's animated films, even ones from Illumination, or especially ones from Illumination, are able to bring in, right? So this isn't like bonkers successful, but, considering it's like a pretty mid movie, it's been interesting to see it's kind of the legs that it's had. Similar legs, I've talked about this. This is my third live stream that we've done. And I feel like this is the third time I'm saying this. I probably will keep saying it until it drops out of the top 10. Wonka, right? So coming in at number 6, bringing in just a small, humble 3.4 million. It still dropped a little bit. It was number 4 last week. It dropped to 6th, but this is in its 10th frame. Okay, this is its 10th weekend now at the box office, and saw an 11% jump. Okay, it has been out for almost 3 months, and it is still in the top 10. Has grossed about 210 million domestic and 605 million worldwide. I think this weekend is what helped it push over the 600 million mark worldwide. So this is an unqualified success. In every, it is more successful than I think anyone could have hoped for. And, again, what lessons will Hollywood take from this? The kind of origin story of a pre-existing character. Are we gonna see more of these? I'm not sure. But as we know, Hollywood almost always takes the wrong lessons. So, take all of this with a grain of salt. And that pretty much sums up the box office from this past weekend. Again, like I said last week, I think the industry and the box office are really just holding out for Dune to come out in early March. That's obviously going to be a big kind of game changer for probably the first really big release of 2024.